standing, please. This evening, our kind and Heavenly Father, we come to you thanking you for this day. Thank you for allowing us to wake up this morning. Thank you for allowing us to go to our respective jobs and locations and our schools. We thank you for our kids in Chester County who started school again for another school year. We ask that you continue to watch over them, keep them safe, keep them engaged in their educational studies so that they can grow up to be productive Chester County citizens. Then, Lord, we ask that you bless each and every citizen that came to this council meeting. We ask that you bless each and every council person, each and every employee for Chester County. These and all of the things I ask in your son Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Guy. All right. Moving along here to number 3 is to approve the minutes of July the 17th, 2023. Need a motion to do that.
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Moser. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Minutes approved. Okay, under citizens' comments, we don't have any per se citizens' comments, but we do have some signees wanting to speak to the rezoning order. And we're going to start with one for Mr. Benji Lehman for Pro on this.
Hey, I'm Benji Lehman. Address is 8720 Red Oak Boulevard, Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm here representing the property owner, Tom Miller, for the site off Gaston Farm Road. This is a plan that you guys are probably quite familiar with. We're bringing it back, basically, just as a little history. We initially started this project with DRB Fielding Group. They are no longer pursuing the site, but Chris Robusto, who was formerly with Fielding, is taking the project over for Dreamfinders Homes. And so now we're working directly with Tom Miller, who's been the property owner since we started the project. Again, the request is for up to 400 single-family lots. The densities still kind of remain the same. We're still in that 2.25 per acre range. Again, the TIA has been completed. We got right turn lanes into the site, improvements at the Highway 9 Lyle Road intersection, and we'll continue to monitor Lyle Road and Gaston Farm Road for future improvements there at the church. We have acquired sewer. We still have sewer for 400 lots. The owner's been working, I believe, with Mr. Hester on the developer agreement. Just a few other high points for architecturally. We're still going back to the same requirements that were asked with the previous home builder. So it's going to be a high quality product. It's hardy board plank. It's still kind of a similar product. Parking spaces per the same plan before. We've got the garages with 2 parking spaces in the driveway. We've got pocket parks throughout the development for additional visitor parking. Other than that, we're meeting all the requirements of the ordinance, BMPs. We've got a lot of open space. That's been a concern. That again isn't something we've really changed. We've continued to maintain the creek buffers and the existing ponds that are out on site. The biggest change I would note, we've actually pulled our rezoning boundary line up away from the church from the previous plan. So now we're several hundred feet away from the church with this rezoning plan. Other than that, that's all I have. If there's questions, I'm here, the property owner here is here, and the home builder's here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, moving right along to Mr. Ron Thompson. He's con on this thing.
Ron Thompson, 2615 Still Village Road. Like a lot of people in this room tonight, and a majority of the residents of Lando and Richburg, I am opposed to the rezoning request for the Gaston Farm Road property. I know that you are all aware that this property is part of the Gateway Master Plan that was approved by County Council not too many years ago. It was set aside as industrial to help bring businesses and jobs to Chester County. A major industry employing Chester County residents would be a much greater benefit to all of Chester County than another high-density housing project would. You've heard our concerns regarding the increased traffic that all of these neighborhoods are bringing to Richburg. At the previous planning and zoning meeting, after several residents had mentioned the increased traffic, a statement was made from the commission to the effect, the state says the road can handle the traffic, so we're not taking that into consideration. I drive into Charlotte almost every morning. According to the states of North and South Carolina, I-77 can handle the traffic, but it is congested and slow and dangerous at best. Highway 160 through Fort Mill can handle the traffic, but at most times of the day, it is impossible to make a left turn across lanes. Already, the school traffic at the Louisville schools is a nightmare. But according to the experts, the roads can handle it. There are still concerns regarding just how many new houses and what types of neighborhoods Chester County needs. We already have the classic cookie cutter neighborhoods close by. Have you driven through Knightsbridge? I drove through Knightsbridge this past Sunday. Those houses are mere feet from each other, and every house is basically the same design and same color. As I drove through Knightsbridge and looked at how crowded they were, I thought of the recent fires in Maui where whole neighborhoods were destroyed and how that could be a very real possibility if a major fire broke out in that project. And to bring up traffic again, a lot of the houses in Knightsbridge had 4 cars in the driveway, some of them blocking the sidewalks. That's a lot of traffic in and out of that neighborhood, and even though they're not supposed to make a left turn on a 901 from one of the entrances, several times I've seen cars from that neighborhood turn left into oncoming traffic to avoid the median that is supposed to prevent that. I believe the County Council has promised more workshops to discuss the housing needs of Chester County. I cannot emphasize enough how important this is. Let the residents of Chester County help decide what is needed. Don't let these out-of-town investors and developers dictate what our community turns into. I also encourage you to investigate thoroughly the business practices and construction quality of any developer and builder before allowing them to build in Chester County. The residents of Chester County deserve the best quality, and some of these developers are delivering very poor construction and are more interested in selling mortgages than in producing a quality built product. In closing, all we are asking for is to not turn the Richburg area into another Fort Mill. There's plenty of property in Great Falls, Fort Lawn, and Westchester that can be developed. I bet there's even property in Lowry's. Let us preserve the rural way of life that we have come to love, just as some of you are protecting your areas from being overdeveloped. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. All right, moving along to giving Mr. Tom Miller for pro.
Thank you for your time once again, council members. My name is Tom Miller. I reside at 1682 Pleasant Grove Road here in Chester, South Carolina. I represent the owners of Gaston Farm property as Gaston Springs LLC. And we're here again requesting a rezoning of this property to a PD zoning, and want to convey that I've had extensive talks with Brian Hester relating to the development agreement. We are in full agreement with the $5,000 per lot development fee. We decided to take this project on ourselves as developers as opposed to leaving it to outside developers so we could have more control over the process as opposed to someone walking away at the last moment like we've had 2 projects recently. We're committed to fulfilling the development agreement prior to the next council meeting, and I've been in conversations with Joni Winters about preparing the document and look forward to seeing that this week and anticipate having that executed prior to the next meeting. I request that we have a vote on it tonight if at all possible, as opposed to deferring the vote once again. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Okay, Mr. Robin Dodson.
So, I'm Robin Dodson. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and I've known most of you a long time, some since you were children, some 30 years, some 40 years. I've known you since you were my age, when we were little. Grew up in Great Falls, lived in Chester County about 57 of my X number of years. I'm a lifelonger and have moved back in 1989. My husband and I bought property at 3631 Hernandez Road in the early 90s, and zoning was not in place in the county. And I was, please, Barry, please let me build my dream home. I want to build my farm and have my beautiful farm on my beautiful property. And he was a commercial real estate in North and South Carolina. He said, no, Robin, we can't build. We can't build at all because there's no zoning. I'm like, Barry, please. He said, no, zoning will protect us, Robin. Zoning will protect us. And so here we come 35 years later, since we've been here, and we're finding out that zoning is not working out. We have a Gateway Master Plan that was adopted and cost a lot of money. You guys voted for it. We have the 2020 to 2030 Chester County Comprehensive Plan that has a specific plan for the development, 7 years even going into it for the Gateway District. I am opposed to the planned development on Gaston Farm Road, and the reason is because it doesn't follow these plans. And I implore you, if you voted for it, and some of you are new and you haven't, but if you voted for it, please follow through. Please do what it says. Please do what it says. And light industrial is not a planned development. Okay? The other thing I want to talk about is the planned development zoning that we have in Chester County. I want to contrast it with the state law. The state law has the word must in it. Our county zoning ordinance has may. The state law, it's section 629-720 for zoning districts. It says a planned development district is comprised of different types of housing and densities of compatible commercial uses or shopping centers, office parks, and office developments. It says the planned development provisions must encourage innovative site planning for residential, commercial and business, or industrial, or institutional, or any of that combination thereof. That is what the state has told us a planned development district should be. Our county says, these are the district regulations, Chapter 4, a planned development district may permit a mixture of different types of housing with compatible commercial uses, shopping centers, office parks, and other mixed-use developments. May is not must. Why did we adopt a zoning ordinance that doesn't follow what the state says we should have? It's huge, and I'm here to implore and beg you to please change your zoning ordinance so that it complies with what a planned development district should be. It should carry us forward. It should benefit us all. It shouldn't benefit just one person who wants to develop only housing. Residential is single use. This says mixed use. May, the word may in our ordinance is why developers are asking for this high-density housing, because it's maximum dollars for them. Every 4 houses at LGI is $1 million. Of course, they aren't PD, and I know that. May is costing the current taxpayers of our county.
Ms. Dodson, you 3 minutes.
Okay, increased dollars. So,
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you so much.
Yes,
Thank you. Please change.
Okay, Joan Hyde? Hyde?
Joan Hyde, 2440 Gil Jordan Road, Chester. As Mr. Thompson noted earlier, there was mention of a workshop. Approximately a year ago, Mr. Compton, who's a so-called expert for plan development, spoke in front of this council. However, 3 members obviously were not here at that time. One of those council members had stated that they would like to see a workshop with Mr. Compton again to discuss plan developments, because he spoke about having plan developments in one area commercial in one area, industrial in another area, so that anyone coming to this county could just look at that map and see, oh, we can build a house here, we can't build one here, oh, this is where we can put our factory. It was very simple. And at that workshop, last year, there was to be a follow-up. We've not seen that gentleman back again. The person on council even asked several meetings ago, in order to make an educated decision, he would like to see that workshop. We haven't seen it. So we think it's prudent that you hold that workshop before you do any votes. So we're asking that you delay the vote, not vote, until these workshops are completed. And then the other area of dispute was the Chester County Schools. We've talked about law enforcement, how the Chester County Sheriff's Office is not as full staff. Max Dorsey has told me that and said too that he can't properly provide service to this county because they don't have enough deputies. And also the Lando Fire Department, which is a volunteer fire department. Richburg would maybe answer calls if it was a second alarm, but this development is under Lando. It's a volunteer fire department, so that's a burden. But the other burden that we think most importantly is the schools. If there's no seat at Louisville Elementary or Middle School, how are you going to educate these children? That's the most important thing growing up is education. So we ask that you fill out the Freedom of Information Act and ask the school district, what is the capacity, what is the enrollment for Louisville Elementary, Middle, and High School? We've provided those figures, but they've been disputed. So we're saying, get the facts yourselves so that you have them and can make an educated decision that those schools are full and do not have the capacity. Then that way, there's no question as to the information that we provide. That would be a fact, and it would also be facts for Mr. Compton to provide his information. So we're asking that you get that information before any decision is made. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hyde. All right. I believe that's all that signed up to speaking on those issues, and we thank each one of you for doing so. All right. Moving along to ordinance, resolutions, and proclamations. Under A, the third reading of 2023-17, an ordinance to amend the Chester County procurement policy.
I'll move that we approve the third reading of 2023-17.
Okay. Have a motion and a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Yes, please. If everybody would turn to page 2.
Page 2, for the procurement policy.
The procurement policy.
If you read the second paragraph, it is the goal of Chester County to fairly and equally and partially administer its procurement program based on the guidelines set forth in this manual. This manual's 48 pages long. 48. Trust me, I read every one of them today. If you turn to page 7. Number 6, compliance with county finance and federal requirements. That is the headline under F. This will comply with county finance and federal requirements. If you go on down to F again, you read antitrust. The county operates in strict compliance with antitrust laws such as the Sherman-Clayton and the Federal Trade Commission Acts in any area of county government's operations, where violations have significant negative impacts on the ability to conduct business. You're going to be hearing this one when we get to the zoning. If you will turn to page 13. If you look in the second paragraph, the county administrator and his designator and the director are the only individuals authorized to sign purchase orders or contracts on behalf of the county. any individual who enters into an agreement without the prior authorization of the signature of either the county administrator or the director may be assuming personal liability for such conduct. The last time I checked, this council hired the administrator. The director of purchasing works for him. I don't quite understand why we have both names in that process. If you turn to page 23 and 24. Competitive bidding exceptions. There are 16 listed things that you do not have to bid. One of them in here, I go through all of these, but one of these in here says legal services. So the county administrator or the county council just hires somebody to do legal work. Ms. Winters is the attorney for the county, but any other services, and what it says, they're exempt from having to get a price to spend the county's money for legal services. On page 24, and this is where I quit reading. Formal bids for construction projects, and I just simply could not believe this. For construction projects, the Public Works Director, along with a third-party engineering firm, the engineer, shall generate plans and create specifications. Now, who hires the engineer? How much does it cost? How much does all of that work? Who is that? The purchasing, the hiring of that is the Public Works Director along with a third-party engineering firm. Did the county administrator hire him? Did the director of purchasing hire him? Or did the Public Works Director just go out and find Billy Bob to come in and help? It's not spelled out. That's what I'm trying to get to. Where the director or in the third paragraph, where the director and/or engineer feel a pre-bid meeting is mandatory, that information will be included in the invitation for bid. The bidders who do not attend the mandatory pre-bid meeting will be prohibited from submitting a bid. Here again, not the administrator, the director, and the engineer, who nobody knows who it is and who paid for it, is involved in it. And this is where it just, wheel came off the cart and I quit. The director, with the assistance of the county attorney, shall create a contract agreement which is sent to the successful contractor for execution. Once the contract agreement has been returned, the director, the engineer, and other individuals who is managing the project will issue a notice to proceed for the contractor. The county administrator, who all these people work for, is totally left out of that process. Totally left out. I'm not going to vote for this. I quit reading on that. That's 24 more pages. We got to get a procurement process here that is correct. And I don't think this meets the standards that I'm going to vote.
I'll address that either to Ms. Winters or Mr. Hester.
I'll address, Mr. Chairman. So I'll go back to page 13 first. I think it's probably the most appropriate place to start because I don't think prior to that, Mr. Agee, there was any questions, correct? So when we talk about a director as well as the administrator, the reason for that is because there's parts of our process that don't require my approval. Those limitations were established early within this document, and so there are certain spending amounts that I do not have to authorize for those expenditures to go forward. Now, I think Ms. Coke will tell you I review actually every expenditure that goes through. I review every single PO that goes through our process, and I mean down to $3.50. So
However, she has the authority to sign some of those on her own based on the way our policy is set. So that would explain page 13 and why both names would have that ability to enter the county into those agreements. When it comes to the formal bid construction process, while I know that needs to be cleared up a little bit with regards to the Public Works Director, the Public Works Director in the past, prior to my arrival, has actually been kind of the project manager, along with a combination of the Director of Procurement. And that was just a setup that was here with, and in my administrator's report, we'll discuss a little bit about the project manager's position, and we've all had discussions around the importance of that. That project manager will be that person that will be in that paragraph. So when it talks about a third-party engineer, we have to have engineering designs, whether that comes from, a company, a construction company, or an engineering firm, or an architecture firms. We have to have those engineering designs. So I think while it may not be clear, we can work to clear that up, Mr. Agee, as we move forward. But I can assure you that every single project, since probably my second month here, I've been heavily involved in, which we'll talk about that a little bit in the administrator's report also. So I think the goal here was, let's get the purchasing and the procurement part changed. This is a living document that, as things change with hiring that project manager and as we move forward, there's other things. There's two other things in here I can point out to you that we're going to be coming to council to ask for changes in the future. But I think the goal is, we just started a new budget year. I want to get the procurement process moving as quick as can, make it more efficient. And so those were really the heart of the changes. So I appreciate you bringing these others up in G, but we will move forward with them.
My only point in all of this, if it's not in black and white, it does not mean one thing in a court of law. It needs to be correct in black and white, because you're gonna have to stand with it soon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, and I take full responsibility for the project since I've been here. As far as, this just gives them the authority to sit down and communicate. And again, that project manager, we'll change these. We don't have that position yet, so I still have the Public Works Director appointed as the interim project manager.
Well, I don't have any problems with it. I think that's the whole process in this thing, is to have a chain of command,
Yes, sir.
A, B, C, D, and not A, C, D, C, whatever. And that's exactly what got us in trouble at Rodman, and we're not going to make that mistake again if I can help that and have
Yes, sir.
anything to do with that. We have got, as you spoke with me the other day, we got to fix that.
Yes, sir.
So to clear this up for citizens that may not understand, what we're doing today is we're voting on the third reading to amend the things that we talked about before this meeting. And then the things that Mr. Agee speaking of now, we can start a process to amend those at a future meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct. And there'll be more changes to this document as we progress through this year and our personnel. But again, it's kind of one of those, let's tackle one of these things at a time.
So my question is, we amend it, we vote to amend the things that we've already talked about on the previous two readings. We vote to do that tonight, to amend those. That'll be a third reading.
Yes, sir.
Then we discuss the things that Mr. Agee brought up. What do we do? How can we fix this situation so that when we discuss the things Mr. Agee brought up, and then we amend those, that there's nothing else that we bring up, we can have a period of feeling comfortable with this procurement process? Do we need to have more than one workshop? We did have a workshop on this. Should we have a more extensive workshop to actually go through each and every one of these items after we do this third reading tonight, so you can move forward with procurement? My goal is, so we won't have to continue to deal with the procurement. Maybe we can have a year or so or maybe longer before we can feel comfortable, that we all can feel comfortable with the procurement process. What are your suggestions as to satisfying Mr. Agee's concerns and any future concerns that we may have after the third reading of these of his concerns, we may have this again, and we don't want to keep having this on the agenda. So what do you suggest that we can do to make sure that our procurement process is something that we're all comfortable with?
I think with regard to page 13, I answered that question. I think that the way that is currently is the way it should be. There shouldn't be a change on that page, just due to the fact that at some point, based on our policy, I may not review the $3 purchase orders, so I think that needs to stay the way that it's worded. As far as the document and how we move forward, the one thing I think is important to understand is, I want to get to where we have a document that's fully working and it can stay that way. But unfortunately, as we grow as a county and as things change, this isn't the only document we'll revisit. Our employee handbook and, our planning and zoning that Mr. Agee is discussing. There'll be other things and other documents that we should continually review to make sure that the practice is still what we're doing. So I think if the goal is to get a document that, hey, we've spent enough time on this and we're not, I think we should be constantly be reviewing all of our policies, procedures, and how we do business, and making sure that it's efficient. Things are going to come up that we say, that doesn't fit the new way of doing business. Just like what Mr. Agee pointed out, that doesn't necessarily fit the new way of doing business. But if I change it right now, when we don't have that position filled, it wouldn't make sense. And so I think that procurement cards, those types of things, we've already had discussions, myself and Ms. Koch, about goals we want to see for procurement this year. This was, when I walked in the doors and I sat down with all the county officials and all the leaders, this purchasing process and the limitations and at what point we went for bid and so forth, that was the biggest problem that they wanted to tackle immediately, or they wanted me to tackle. And so we put our focus there. And I think with Ms. Moore, this is probably our 6th version of this, so 8th version of this. So, and you guys have seen a couple of those, but not all of them. So we even went through it again today with a fine-tooth comb and found a typo. So I think to your point, with regard to some things like what Mr. Agee just pointed out, put the trust in me and put it on my back that I'll ensure that we're doing it properly. When the time comes to make the adjustment, I'll give you as short a version, if I can do that, of what needs to be changed, and we'll make a change to that, and it'll have to go through its readings.
Let me mention, Mr. Guy's on the right track. On page 7, when you're talking about compliance with finance and federal regulations and antitrust, then you get over into another section, and I don't remember exactly what page it is. It says the county council did not, there's a term called non-delegation authority doctrine. And in this package here, it says the county council retains the authority to approve the bonds and things like that. What we're going to be talking about in a few minutes, the county council gave up that authority. And what we don't want to do is give up the authority of the county council to make sure that the taxpayers' dollars are spent correctly. And that's what I'm after in looking at this procurement policy, is that the taxpayers' dollars are correctly spent, not in no disrespect to anybody, but the decision belongs up here on this camera for certain amounts of money. And that's what I'm concerned about with the federal compliance with federal requirements and the antitrust part, because we have given up our authority in another area that we're going to be talking about.
Yes, sir. And council, remember that anything that goes out for sealed bid, so we hit that $100,000 mark, council retains that right to approve that at the end of the day.
All right.
Is any further discussion?
I would just add that I appreciate that we're doing this at this time. You know, I agree, the more often we visit this document, the better. We don't want to put it on the bookshelf and not look at it for a year or two. We want to look more, the more the better. We appreciate the way it's gone. We've had ample opportunities to give you our feedback, so thank you for that. And, you know, I think it's a step in the right direction.
Is it my understanding that, realizing this is a living and a liquid document, that if we made further changes, would it go through the three-reading process?
Because it's an ordinance, it does have to, Mr. Chairman.
So that would be something that we would look at it, that any other changes would have to go back through the three-reading process.
And again, the goal there is let's bite this off in pieces and tackle this.
Okay, good.
I guess to clear my statement up, because I don't want it to be misconstrued in any way. What I'm trying to say is I don't actually want to not look at this document. What I'm actually saying is what can we do so that the things that Mr. Agee brought up can be addressed? And how often can it be addressed, or is it, I guess, should we do another workshop? Should we do a more extensive workshop to amplify that? I think I said that before. Should we do another more extensive workshop other than a couple hours or something of that nature to actually go through this document with a fine-tooth comb so that we're all okay with the document? I'm 100% for revisiting the document, but we see we're here at the third reading. We had a workshop on this, and we still have council members right now that are still not okay with this document. So I guess what I'm saying, should we have a more extensive workshop that maybe lasts a long, or one that maybe lasts for a couple days, a couple sessions where we actually discuss this?
Do it in sections, like split it up.
There you
One
go.
half and then-
Do it in sections, so we split it up and we all understand it and discuss it.
So, Mr. Guy, my ask would be that we approve at least the changes have been made, because several of our departments, our elected officials that are in this room are awaiting the changes that we did discuss in the workshop, which were really the beginning of this document with regard to our thresholds and the process at those thresholds, the authorization, the ability for them to operate more efficiently. And so the fact that we're kind of on a month and 21 days into this budget year, several of our departments and so forth are waiting to get some of their procurement going under the more efficient operation, so they're not having to go out for sealed bid for a $20,000 item.
I'm with you on that.
But if we go forward with
council,
council's request
Yeah.
to conduct a workshop, I'll set the workshop
Okay.
up.
that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I think we should have something more extensive, like Ms. Aaron said right here, where we discuss sections of this so that we can point a lot of this stuff out, discuss a lot of it, and get a lot of it out in the open. We move forward with what we have now, but again, we're here again with more questions on this same document. So I think there's a problem with the document, so we need to look at it more extensive. That's what I'm actually saying.
Yes, sir.
Are the first 6 pages what you're talking about?
There were changes on several pages throughout the 48, but a lot of them went back to that. But if you, before I say yes, let me just look at what page the bulk of that really ended on. And then it's in that section, and it also includes the section, and I'd have to go back and track down exactly, but the section about, well, that's actually on page 3 with regard to local bidders. So yes. No, there are some other changes that were, and I think you pointed them out in our workshops about where county administrator is the one who's in charge of this. So we changed to where the chairman was my backup. There's lots of other changes throughout too. But again, we didn't tackle those things specifically for reasons.
What you're talking about, let's just use the sheriff, for example. If he's waiting on something, is that in the first 6 pages?
I can't guarantee that it doesn't have repercussion into other pages. There's not something that refers back to it. If you only, if where you're going to only approve the first 6 pages, I think you'll leave something out.
What I'm interested in is page 7.
Is there any other?
There's no changes that I have on page 7.
Page 7 concerns the ethics and the antitrust and the federal requirements. That's what I'm interested in.
All right. Is there
I'll
any other
call for the
discussion?
question. Yeah.
Okay, I think the question, I'll agree with you on that. Call for the question, so all in favor, raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. All opposed? Mr. Agee, opposed, the rest is agreed on that. Okay, moving along to B, 2023-17, a resolution to change the position title of Benefits Administrator to Risk Tech or HR Generalist.
I'll make a motion to approve 2023-17.
Need a second?
Second.
Ms. Mosley, is that you? Ms. Mosley,
Yes, sir.
second that? All right, any discussion on this?
Yes, can Mr. Hester give us some insight on this change?
Yes, sir. That was just to, as we move forward in HR, there was the second position, there's only 2 positions in HR, and that second position was titled and listed as a benefits administrative risk. I believe it was benefits and risk tech. And so the goal there is throughout industry, in the HR industry, a generalist position is a position that can do anything that needs to be done in HR. And that's the goal, is to expand that position a little bit, especially with a job description. If a new HR director asks, when you have a small operation like we do, people need to be able to do everything, and we don't need to be bound by a job description of only 2 functions in such a small department. So that's the only goal there.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, any further discussion? Here, no more discussion, all in favor, raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? Okay, moving along to number 6, which would be the administrator's report. Mr. Hester.
Well, this one's a little bit lengthy because we've not been here in quite some time, so I hope I don't take the rest of too long on this, but there's a couple of things that I just want to kind of update the community and council on and talk about. One is Rodman Sports Complex. And so I apologize if I'm going to read, but I've got so much on my list tonight that I'm kind of going to read some of this. So with the update on Rodman Sports Complex is that we've received a recommendation from Alliance to basically deny the contract from the lowest bid and to go back out for a rebid. And after Rodman came in over budget during our bid process, and I mean significantly over budget, we changed some of the scope with regard to page that Mr. Agee was talking about. And so, again, we went back and we looked at that scope and we looked at really what was called for and what the real needs of our community are. And I can give you examples of that. But, you know, and I'll give you one example just so everybody knows what I'm talking about. When you put lighting on a sports field, we don't need major league lighting. We don't need the same lighting that they put in the Met Stadium where I came from. We need something, a recreational type field lighting. And so when you consider the cost of that, it could be, you know, $50,000, $70,000. So when you look at the scope of this project, we pulled back some of the scope. We asked the lowest bidder to give us an updated quote based on the scope, the changes to the scope. And after that number came in, we did not feel that the new quote was equal to the change in scope. So we felt that the price was still too high for that, and so the recommendation was for us to go back out for bid again. We will do a redesign and have new cost opinions that start in September. The bid will be prepared and ready to go out by January. So hopefully before the season starts next year, we will have a new lowest bidder in place, and then we'll hold on that project, because permits will take a little bit, but we'll hold on that project till the end of Little League season next year to ensure that our kids in this community get to participate in youth sports at Rodman Complex. But I think this is the best thing for the community, for the tax dollars. Mr. Darby and myself have been working diligently we know that the funding for this project is going to be different than what it was 5 years ago, and we have identified funds to make sure that we can complete this project. But again, the problem with the current bids is the change in scope and the change in price from the builder didn't match. And so I don't think that's a good use of taxpayer funds. And so the other thing that I want to highlight here is that Alliance Engineering, who is our engineer design on this project, the firm on this project, has agreed to do all this at no cost to Chester County. And I think that is extremely important to recognize. And I think that goes to the relationship that we have built with Alliance, because that would be a substantial cost to Chester County to redesign and rebid this project. And so I think that is something that council, I want you to recognize with regard to that. So if there's any questions with regard to that before I move on.
Is that going to also include the soccer fields and everything?
So, and that's a good question. Thank you, Mr. Agee, about the question about soccer fields. And so some of the discussion that Mr. Darby and I have had with regard to that, and he's just kind of been informing me that we did set aside money for those soccer fields. So I think our goal with this, and I say I think, it is our goal, is to take a look at doing this in one swoop with that money, with the monies that we have, with reallocating some components, but to go ahead and update the bathrooms on that side, update the sidewalks on that side, because we all know that soccer is just as popular and as important and of a youth sport as our Little League baseball, softball, and all that is. So, yes, sir, we plan to include that. To what extent, we have to sit down at the table, but yes. Any other questions on Rodman?
Mr. Hampton, you say they're gonna do something for free?
Yes, sir.
Hey, they supposed to do something for free, all this money we done paid them.
Yes, sir, I think we've made that known. So,
Yeah.
thank you. All right, so moving along, I just want to give an update on Lewis Fire Station. The specs are being set up for bid, and based on all the meetings, I think this is where you can really see us moving forward in the right direction. I saw Mr. Jay Williams is here, Mr. Kel Benson's in the room. There was a couple of other people, Mr. Darby was at the meetings, but we all sat down in meetings prior to finalizing this project. And Lewis Fire Station was able to have their input, and we actually sat there and made changes. They weren't significant changes, but there were things that would affect fire trucks turning around or where doors needed to be, and those changes were made prior to this thing going out for a construction bid, and it costing the county more money. And so that effort of everybody being at the table and having input is what we want with our projects going forward. And so with that, the construction cost opinion on this came back well within our budget. And even again, everybody's eyes on this caught a mistake about a fence, and that was corrected really, really quickly. But the key here that I want everybody to know is bids. The bid process, the bids should go out right after Labor Day that week. So we should see bids coming back, have a selection probably within the next 2 months on Lewis Fire Station. I'm not going to steal the thunder on North Chester because Mr. Benson is going to give an update on some rural fire stuff, so I'll let him talk about North Chester. But I hope everyone did see our Facebook posting this past week about your penny at work. So I'll let him do that. The animal shelter is moving forward. We got some pre-construction cost opinions, but we are going back and looking at design on the animal shelter before we move any further forward to ensure that the scope and what we are doing fits the needs of the county. So we are working on that. Next thing I'd like to talk about is our Parks, Rec, and Tourism position. I am happy to announce that we have hired a Parks, Rec, and Tourism Director, and their official start date is August 28th. And this is a huge milestone and step forward for us as a community. We interviewed 6 candidates for that position, and we selected Mr. Britt Studenmeyer. He's originally from Chester County. He's got a mechanical engineering degree from Virginia Tech. He played baseball at Virginia Tech for 5 years. He was a pitcher. He's got an MBA from the Citadel, and he played, well, I told you he played college baseball, but he's been in the tourism industry for the last 20 years. Outdoor recreation business, as a river and fishing guide, owns several venues. He's researched our rivers and he knows our county very well, and I think he's going to hit the ground running. I'm really excited to announce that he is starting that position August 28th. Human Resources position, I wanted to give that update here. I had a second meeting with a candidate today, and I hope to know tomorrow if that position's been accepted, but the meeting went very well. And again, a very high caliber candidate, a master's degree from the greatest Clemson University in human resources. I'm sorry to you Carolina people. But really professional, very professional, well-rounded person. So I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to jinx myself on her taking the position. I'm sorry? Project manager position has been posted. So I know you've all been waiting, Mr. Guy. I know that's been something that we've all talked about, and that position was posted last week. And so we will follow up. We've posted, I think, on Indeed, and then, of course, in our circle with SCAC. So we'll see how the applications come in for that position. I know I'm running a little long, but bear with me. The other thing I want to do is just highlight, I think it's really important for us to highlight some of our employees because the community doesn't always know what's going on behind these walls and out, throughout our community. I don't think council always knows. And so I think it's really important for me to make sure that we highlight some of those things. And so I'm just going to take a minute and run through a few things, but Molly, who is here, who is our landfill director, I call her landfill director, recycling coordinator, and all that good stuff, had 2 fires within a weekend at the landfill. And I know that's not a great thing, but it happens. It happens in our world, and it happens at landfills. And she did an extremely good job, her along with emergency management. They were on the phone with me on Friday night asking, we have the green light to do whatever it takes. I said, absolutely you do, put the fire out. But between our fire service, our emergency management group, and Molly, they were there all weekend. They had to go back out Saturday and take care of it. But they got noticed from, I think Mr. Abercrombie, who's going to speak, he even took note of how well they handled the situation, because that could easily get out of control. And I know we've all seen mulch fires and other major incidents with landfills, but they did a really nice job, and I think it's important to recognize that. I've got a letter from Lux Stone that's recognizing our planning and zoning. I'll just take a minute to read it. Thank you so very much for all of the time and attention required by your rezoning and special exception permit campaign over the past years. Lux Stone's efforts would have not been successful without the guidance, feedback, and attention, the detail provided by your office. We hope that future projects allow more time for that planning, skill to generate. We're so very appreciative of you and the support that we're so excited to officially join the Chester community. I get a lot of emails and I get a lot of phone calls and I get a lot of letters like this about our employees going above and beyond. And that was just two that I wanted to take just a minute to highlight. I'm skipping a few things because I know we're pressed for time. I'm just picking, I wanted to highlight economic development real quick. I attended the CDA last week. Mr. Branham, you were there. And one of the things that caught my eye is the innovativeness of our economic development team. And they have come up with it. I thought that was kind of amazing. Is that my alarm? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Appreciate that. They come up with a really innovative process where they're basically taking economic development on the road. Instead of waiting on site consultants to come to us, they're going to some of these big cities like Greenville and Charleston and hosting CDA road shows is what they're calling them. So they're actually going to the site consultants and showing them what we have to offer here from site selection in Chester. And I really thought that was the most innovative, and there's no lack of projects coming to them, so my hat's off to them. Procurement, I won't talk about that anymore, but I will say that Susan, Ms. Winters have worked very hard, and if I've left out anybody, I'm sorry on that. And then I have to recognize our IT, David Schulke in IT. You guys don't see the money he has already saved the county this year in renegotiation of contracts, taking a look at Better Ways software, and he is heading up processes within our, we have several different softwares that do different things, and he's looking at all-in-one softwares. But really the innovativeness, the vision, him and I had some discussions about a vision when I started, and he has really taken that with passion and run with it. And so I think it's just, it's really important just to recognize some of them. So I probably missed some people, and I don't want to belabor that. The last thing I'm going to give you is a little update on our auditor, and I'm just going to read this real quick. But as I think I had talked to several of you that we received a call, Mr. Darby did, from Bob Faulkner, who's been our auditor for several years, and notified us that due to staffing issues, he could not complete the audit. Well, this was like literally 3-4 weeks ago. So Mr. Darby immediately started the process of reaching out, and it turned out that most of the CPA and audit firms in our area and around are experiencing the same thing, and it got kind of to the point where we were a little nervous about, where we're going to have to ask for an extension on this audit. But the good news is that we have secured Sheehan, Hancock, and Godwin, and they will be able to perform the audit within our budgeted amount that we already had set forth for Faulkner. And they will be able to get it done within our time frame so that we are compliant. So I just wanted to make that update. And that ends my administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Hester, for that report. A lot of good information there. Okay, moving right along to old business under A, Chester County Landfill Expansion Update. Mr. John Abercrombie out of Labella Consult.
All right, sir. My name's John Abercrombie. I'm with Labella Associates. We're a engineering architectural firm. We also do solid waste. We teach the landfill managers courses for the DHEC for the state of South Carolina. That's where I met Miss Knowlton, and I'll just throw a quick, you don't find many people that come into it new that grab hold to it like she has, like a bulldog, and takes care of business. And she's done a great job from everything that I've seen. I've spent some time working with them. So now I'll go ahead with what I got to do here. We were made aware of the fact that you guys needed to have an expansion during one of our classes last fall. And at that time, they came to me and said, look, we got less than a year's worth of airspace left. Are we in trouble? And I said, well, how far along are you in the expansion process? And they said, well, we're just starting. We try to get everybody to plan 10 years ahead when it comes to landfill airspace. If you don't, you're behind. So we came in and we talked to them and spent some time. We're in engineering planning. We do environmental testing. We also do education and operational assistance for landfills. So what we did is they came in and we talked to them and we did a study, basically an option study for how we would expand. We could have gone the direction that what they were looking at, but what they were looking at before, it would take 1 year just to do the groundwater study. They have a new process that they're going through in the state of South Carolina now, which is called piggybacking. You guys have a large closed MSW landfill out there. Now, DHEC is allowing us to go over the top of that old landfill with construction demolition landfill and build on top of that. You already have all the infrastructure in place, all your groundwater wells are there, all your gas monitoring equipment's there, so that expenditure for that infrastructure is not necessary. It's all in place already. I don't know if you guys can see this map we've got here. We'll expand it just a little bit, but this landfill is basically going to be out of airspace within about 7 or 8 months. So we're offering several options to take a look at. The best possibility is 70 to 75 years of airspace out there. That airspace will accommodate whatever growth you have in this county, industrial or otherwise. And permitting for the larger volume is at the same price. We got 4 different options there. But to go through the permitting process, it's going to cost the same amount of money, same amount of time with DHEC. You might as well get the biggest bite for your dollar. We've done an aerial survey already, and we've done those assessments. We've had conversations with DHEC about that piggyback expansion, which is what that's called. We've gotten the buy-in, verbal buy-in from DHEC on that concept. Because of our relationship with DHEC, we do all the education and all that work with them. We do have their ear to a certain extent. It uses the space on the closed MSW cells that are there now. It utilizes all the groundwater and structures, as I said, and it plans for auxiliary airspace to bridge between those phases. We've already talked to them. We've told them, look, this process is going to take about a year to get this thing permitted. We're going to run out of airspace in the meantime. Can we use some auxiliary space here to work with? Generally, in our past history and our experience with DHEC, we've been allowed to do that. So that's what we're hoping to be able to do. So let's look at the conceptual